You have to unmute yourself though.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening for the City of Yes Committee meeting. My name is Wendy Hewlett-Betts and I am your chair.
My name is Edward Perez. I'm your co-chair.
Rich Reynoso, member.
Aguila, member.
Bernadette Farrar, member.
Robert Press, community member.
Brian Adams, community member, and Sergeant Adams of 49 Precinct Community Council.
Why don't you go ahead and introduce Bob in his formal capacity?
So we have a new member for the City of Yes Committee, Bob Press. Bob, I don't have your bio in front of me, but we all know you, right?
Yes.
And you're a longstanding community member and you've sat on previous community boards.
Like you, I've been on a community board, so we're very much alike.
Exactly.
Mhm.
So I appreciate you and thank you for joining us,
Thank you.
okay?
Mhm.
We're gonna just dive right in because there's another meeting afterwards and I don't want to hold anyone up. So the meeting will start at 6:09. And I'm gonna pass it on to my co-chair.
All right, I know that when we had our meeting last
Monday.
I'm gonna take minutes.
Okay. Oh, thank you.
Rich had taken minutes for our last meeting.
Thank you, Rich.
So I wanted to go ahead and give him a shout out for doing
Yeah,
that.
thank
Not
you.
ready yet, but they will be soon.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
Famous last words.
Yeah, I know, right?
we will not be reviewing the minutes
No,
today,
yeah.
but they will be ready soon. But again, thank you for that,
Yep.
Rich. I want to start by addressing some questions that were asked by Ken Gelnick, one of our board members. Bernadette had went ahead and forwarded these questions and answers to Ken.
Got to print them out, sorry.
No, I mean, I have it on my phone here. So, just for the sake of addressing the questions and stuff, I'm gonna go ahead
That
and
was from, I'm sorry, from Ken. Those were from Ken
Ken
Gelnick.
Gelnick, and then Toon had answered it, but you went ahead and did the footwork to get these answers for us, so thank you for that. So I'm gonna go, it's basically 3 questions that were here. Is Ken online? Oh, Ken's
No.
not online. All right, well, he could watch the recording. Are there an unlimited number of businesses under 5,000 square foot allowed in upper floors in C1 to C2 residential buildings? The answer provided by New York City Department of City Planning, a business that wanted to occupy a second floor in a mixed-use building located in a C1 to C2 district must be a permitted use in that zoning district. With the zoning for economic opportunity proposal, the following categories would be permitted in C1 to C2 districts: retail uses, offices, personal and business services, entertainment uses, transient accommodations, wholesale establishments. To ensure safety and sound mitigation, we would require complete separation between the commercial and residential parts of the building, including separate entrances with separate elevators. Most mixed-use buildings in C1 to C2 districts are fairly small. It would be difficult for smaller buildings to provide the required separation between commercial and residential uses within the building. I kind of want to tackle these one by one, and I want to repeat the question again because that was like a long answer.
Yes.
The question was, are there unlimited number of businesses under 5,000 square feet allowed in upper floors of C1 to C2 residential buildings? I think the reason that Ken had asked this question is because one of the proposals that they're doing is to allow commercial businesses on the same floors as residential businesses. So I believe that might be where this question came from. Bob, do you have anything that you can, I don't know, maybe add to elaborate on that as a community resident when it comes to this particular question? In regards to like the number of businesses that could be.
Well, you see on second floors, you'll see lawyers, you'll see dentists, doctors maybe. So some of the businesses that are being proposed might be a little different from these. That's the problem. That might be what Ken is getting at.
Well, just, can I ask a question about, so lawyers, okay, that's one thing, right?
Mhm.
dentists, I'm just thinking of the equipment and the chemicals, right? Doctor's office. Some doctors in their office, they perform certain procedures, right? So I'm just, again, technicality, again, more administrative information
Right.
and
Well, again, what you might see is the equipment on the first floor and, you know, something on the second floor, more administrative.
okay, so going to a doctor's office just to speak to the doctor.
You know, the billing department might be upstairs
Okay.
or whatever,
Okay.
because
We do have on, I'm just, sorry, I was talking off the top of my head of just doing a visual scan of, we do have like, for example, on Mars Park between Victor and Amethyst, there is a Taekwondo, and it's the whole floor.
Mhm.
And then there's another floor with a lot of, I don't know the square footage, on the second floor between White Plains Road and Victor. And then coming up, I know that there's a lot of I think a few of these spaces on White Plains Road. We're talking about, the business corridors, and I'm sure in Allerton. Eastchester, I'm not sure.
the
if-
board voted on one such item with a 3-floor professional building last year.
so-
I would, just when you said White Plains Road, I'm remembering, because
Mhm.
way back, I took my real estate class in a building on White Plains Road where it was on the second level.
Between
Class-
Lighting, like between Lighting
And
and
apartments was
Centra,
all above that, yeah,
Right,
okay.
right. So there are places on the commercial corridor that have the larger square footage. So
What about like life sciences, right? Like, how do you feel about life sciences on the same floor as residential? So like, let's say blood center or a lab of some sort.
Well, the question the last two words were of some sort, makes me question labs of some sort, so.
Because we don't know, so
Right,
that's why I say
right.
it.
That's the
Right.
question mark, though.
Mhm.
Blood resources, et cetera, like that. I don't think there's a question of any kind of safety, et cetera, but when you're talking about labs, I mean, what kind of labs is it deep research? Is it petri dishes? Is it this? Is it, how do we know?
You talking about like a Quest?
The
Diagnostic.
kind of,
Maybe, again,
that's.
Because I'm
What-
just thinking
what
of
defines a lab?
the container that's left outside the door, right?
Right,
But
but you do have in a
easy.
lot of offices, you have
Right,
their
you do.
blades, et cetera, and, so, but it's just it's a question of the kind of labs that might be, questionable, and if we don't hear about it and we say yes to it, then we're like, well, you said yes. How do we,
And I think I'm there. That's where I'm stuck with all of this zoning stuff,
yes,
right?
thank you,
And
I'm
'cause
not
at
the
the-
only one.
Because at the end of the day, it's nice on paper and it sounds, and some situations affect our neighborhood, some don't. But the things that do affect our neighborhood, it's like a blank table. You could put anything in
It's
it.
writing a
It's
blank
not
check for somebody.
specific.
somebody mentioned on the last meeting something about a fire that happened in the building. I think it was due to the servers that somebody.
It was
had.
me. It was
You
one of my buildings, right?
I started thinking about that and I was like, okay, some of these life science buildings might have something to do with, big servers.
Right.
Or maybe they're dealing with 3D printing and they're having, maybe even a CNC router, and those machines weigh a lot, right? So,
Yeah,
or what if somebody's, I don't know, maybe running a digital currency mining operation in there?
Well, we leave it open,
you know,
we have
Power
to,
consumption,
yeah, we have to be specific.
is the
you know.
building capable of handling the power consumption that some of these businesses are gonna require?
yeah.
What about safety, like ventilation for like, a nail salon or a hair salon or, anything else that gives off fumes like 3D printing?
Yeah.
Right,
Or
proper
research.
ventilation. How does that work when you're in a building with residents,
So,
right? If I live in the middle, or if I want my business to be in the middle of a building and I have residents around, how am I gonna vent? What's the ventilation?
Things go
look
through
like?
walls.
Right,
We know that. Smoke goes through walls. That's why no smoking. To me, it's like no smoking, because, you know, and certain things will actually, like smoking, which when I did my detailed research on it, smoking in buildings, in older buildings, actually deteriorates the material over time.
So,
So there's a lot of questions about, it's too many questions, and
right, so now they do, in his answer to, they do say to ensure safety and sound mitigation, we would require complete separation between the commercial and residential parts of the building. So, you know, what does complete separation mean? Is it a party wall? Is it a firewall? Like, you know, if it's a frame building, is it just drywall and frame? Like, what do you mean by complete separation? How are you keeping these fumes? I mean, they do mention separate entrances with separate elevators, but still,
But you can do that on a brand new building. You can't do that. on
right,
an
what are you gonna do
existing
about an
building.
existing building?
Mhm.
You know, and again, in the essence of time, I just do want to focus on Ken's points because they do raise other questions. What are the questions that we can come back with in regards to what we just discussed? So what questions, like official questions, can we propose in regards to that?
well, first of all, the kind of, the labs were in there, right? The kind of, the specific labs. And what kind of leeway does the community have when there's something in question in the gray area? To me, that gives me some sort of consolation that if there is some sort of leeway, that if there is a question, a safety question, a kind of business question, et cetera, how does that come into the formula?
So like public safety, quality of life, same thing as a liquor license or a marijuana license. Maybe the community board can have some sort of, you know, power or leverage or or part of a review process of the type of business maybe opening, or is that too far of a stretch?
No, it's not.
Well, at this point,
I don't think it's too
I
far.
don't think it's too far. I think it's a very logical question. That I'd like to see in writing, because I'd like to see it in writing. Within the law, within the proposition. So that it gives credibility to an answer that might question that
Labs.
make us feel better.
Malcolm,
Time out.
Hey, what's up? So labs do go through the ULURP process. For example, if somebody was to propose an opening of a blood center, it will have to come in front of the community board and other specific agencies in order to be approved. So if someone was to come, I guess, to open a blood center in the community, they will have to come before us and we will go through the initial stages to look at that. When it comes to labs, personally, you wouldn't really see labs mixed in with residential areas. You will most likely see labs in areas where it is mostly a manufacturing side sector, or that have that M1C3 zoning. Especially in our community, that C3 C4 zoning is mostly located, I will say, near White Plains Road and near the Bronx Park East side, where they have the OGM the OGM lab, along with the other businesses like the parking lot and other things like that. So I guess if there's any concern with the lab entering a place where it's residential, that'd be highly improbable, as they won't have the necessary tools to function in those areas.
okay, thank you.
No problem.
Bob, did you have any questions as a member of the community that we could ask, you know, to follow up on this?
Well, what we're seeing now, especially are bike shops that are having electric bikes and bike repair. This is something that was not planned in the past. There were not electric bikes. There were a lot of things that weren't in the 60s that we have now. Like you said, phone shops, you know, the phone repairs. What can come up in the next 20 years that isn't around now? That's the question. And how, you know, are we just allowing these new ideas to come in without any checks on it?
I mean, business is business. Technology will advance. I mean, in the next 20 years, who knows what we'll be looking at? I mean, we already know the next 10 years, we're going to be looking at virtual reality, coming a thing. It's, I guess that's the magic of our system. When things come up, we can adjust. I personally, how I know I have seen bike shops open. I mean, bike shops has been a thing forever now, but they have changed now because they are now motorized.
Right.
So what we will have to look at is like, the regulations to ensure safety regulations, right? How will the buildings need to be built in order to withstand the charging of the bikes, for example. But if we're going to not legislate, but make predictions based off technology in the future, that would be highly improbable to do, as technology will just continue to advance and advance and advance. It's probably just best to try to predict what type of industries are going to be moving into communities like ours and throughout the city, and figure out how can we mitigate the problems which may arise from what we see now today.
I mean, you're right, Malcolm. Cynthia, I just wanted to piggyback. Yeah, you're absolutely right. They are, especially downtown. I noticed that when I was younger, a lot of the older buildings, you would have that residency, and then you would have a doctor's office, and they would have the LabCorp pickup box outside. So you're right. Malcolm, yeah, it's difficult to speak into the future to predict, because one would have never predict the fast pace of the e-bikes, right? And the electric scooters. So you're right. I think, but you hit the nail on the head when you said the safety. And I think that's how we have to look at the zoning.
That's the
Is we
leeway.
have
How do
to
we-
start picking apart and really taking a deep dive and asking for every group that's within this zoning, what is the safety restrictions? What do we see now? What could potentially happen in the future? And I think that's how we respond. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Could we pull up the map of a neighborhood from the last meeting? Just so we can see specifically what word proposals there are going to be directly impacting us,
Sure.
because that one had like a nice list.
You have that
You
on-
guys have access to Zola, right? Or I could put it up here. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, Malcolm, you could share that. That could also work.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Let's just because we know that exactly has like a nice list of like what the exact proposals are going to be
Right.
impacting what type of
Yeah.
that what are the areas, how big they are, and then we can just see which ones actually will impact us or not.
True. Okay.
Gotcha. Let me just close my work tabs.
Okay.
Alright, I'm on Zola now. I'm going to just the share button. I'm gonna narrow it down to the district.
Oh, not that one specifically.
You guys didn't use this one last time?
No, we used one from the PowerPoint. Is that saved on this computer by any chance?
Oh yeah.
Oh, that I would not know because I wasn't here. Okay. Well, I did
What we about to say?
this one I've used before.
This might be it.
There you
Yeah.
go.
Oh, yeah.
This is it? Okay, yeah, this is what I use for work. Let me just find. All right, this is the district. This is District 11 in its entirety.
Malcolm.
Yeah,
Let me just share the screen that we have so we can go off of what we went last time, because the members here, they're more familiar with what we saw last time. Let me
gotcha.
just open it
I'll
up real
start
quick.
it then. Gotcha.
We're gonna go over the maps, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's like,
Being direct in terms of what will actually impact us.
Does this happen?
Go to Chrome again. It's Explorer. So go back to share.
Yeah.
Oh, you got it? Okay.
Page.
There you go.
no.
Okay.
I think you're sharing.
Malcolm, can you guys see that screen?
No,
Oh no.
Doing Internet Explorer and then doing it from there.
I am so sorry. I'm not a WebEx guy.
Let's go to the third tab.
Yeah,
It's the teams.
let's go next to Teams.
Left.
That one.
Yeah.
Here, share that window.
Go back down. Just hover over it.
It
There.
says share that window.
Click it, there you go.
Hit share.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Wow.
Okay.
All right.
Teamwork.
There we
Thank
go.
you.
Yep.
Malcolm, can you see that?
Yes, we can see that.
Okay. So this is what we were looking at in terms of how we were planning on breaking down the proposal. So this is one of the maps that we're more familiar with looking at. If you're looking at the C1 and C2 districts, like, is this of help to you, or would you prefer to explain what you were gonna explain via Zola?
For me?
C1, whatever there's orange.
Yeah, whatever highlighted is under the relevant district.
Oh, go ahead.
And notice they're all the commercial districts.
And it tells you what proposed.
So if you look at this, everything highlighted in orange are C1s, right? So
Right.
you have Allerton Avenue, you have
White Plains Road.
White Plains Road,
East
Pelham
West.
Parkway, this
Lot on Morris
area,
Park.
a lot on Morris Park.
Morris Park.
It's all of Morris Park Ave over there.
The Williamsbridge Road,
Williamsbridge Road,
East Chester Road, some.
All of the ones that I have circled are the no's. I went through the ones that just my preference.
way in this corner. So, you know, we got a little bit of everything in here.
Okay.
And these are the proposals that are gonna affect these particular areas in the C1s. So when we go to do our community vision board event, we felt that it would have been best to present it with using these last few slides, starting on page 36 or 37, where in the C1s, it'll tell you the proposal numbers and what we could be voting on, right? So proposal number 2 allows same uses as C2 districts. Proposal 3 and so on. And then if we're looking at what's going to happen in C2 districts, this next map, it'll break down what's going on with each proposal for C2s. Obviously, some of them are overlapping. And then it'll give you what are the, you know, the C2 districts in our areas. So you have, you know, some in Allerton, you have less in Morris Park, but you still have, you know, a couple of spots. You know, and it kind of goes on. So in these C2s,
And it's Gun Hill and Fremont.
yeah. You know, you're talking about allowing, you know, eating and drinking establishments up to 200 people, or indoor amusement and recreation facilities up to 10,000 square feet. These are large areas.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, obviously we're gonna want to hear from the community on how they feel, you know, opening up this type of business, you know, in this area.
It's gonna be crazy. I think it's gonna be crazy.
So you also have to remember that, you know, this is given what already exists there, what type of buildings already exist there. So if there is like
In a nutshell.
potentiality, like a 10 square foot building there or something there. If there isn't already a building that meets that requirement now, then at least it's not an issue now. Let's say like completely tear it down or remodel a whole new building, which at that point in time, the community can have some input.
All right, so in the essence of time, you know, we do want to get more specific on, you know, what types of businesses they're allowing in there, what kind of leeway the community board has. I know Malcolm mentioned, you know, labs go through the ULERT process, but what about everything else? You know, whether it's a micro distribution or, you know, a small manufacturing business like a 3D printer or a CNC operation, you know, or any of the other businesses that they want to propose that we allow there. You
And
know,
will ULIP say they'll expand their listing, right? They'll expand their scope. You know, what exactly is ULIP proposing?
okay,
to do.
expand their scope.
They're gonna have to, right? And it just goes back to the amount of businesses that are proposed to come or will come in the future. Businesses mean bodies. Bodies mean more people coming into the community. Infrastructure. Are we prepared for that? You know, the fire department, the police precinct, homes, you know, building, housing, schools. You know, it's already an oversaturation what will that look like in the next 10 to 15, 20 years? Are we prepared for that?
That's 10 to 20 years.
Yeah.
It's gonna be
I said 5 to 10 years.
9 yes, 9 no. I don't care.
All right, Brian.
I mean, I look at Gun Hill Road, I would never think to see Gun Hill Road the way it's looking right now, where it's, one, what is that, north to south? I would have never expected to see that, a lane for the
Buses.
for buses. I would have thought I've never seen that. I've been living in this neighborhood for over 40 years. So it's already changing before our eyes
Yeah.
without this.
Last 10 years.
All right. So moving on to Ken's next question. Are there any restrictions on businesses as to the load-bearing capacity of the building and who will enforce it? I think, we did touch on safety. So the answer provided by the Department of City Planning is only businesses that are permitted under the applicable zoning for that property would be allowed to occupy a building. As with all zoning rules, the New York City Department of Buildings is the primary enforcer. DOB is also responsible for issuing building permits and certificate of occupancy, which would also cover structural work such as load-bearing capacity of a building. The certificate of occupancy confirms that the completed work complies with all applicable laws and all paperwork has been completed. All relevant violations have been resolved and all necessary approvals have been received from other city agencies. DOB issues a final CO when the completed work matched the submitted plans for new buildings or major alterations. Both for new buildings and for major alteration work to existing buildings, a business would require a new certificate of occupancy from DOB. One of the requirements for issuing a certificate of occupancy is a final construction inspection. So again, are there any restrictions on businesses as to the load-bearing capacity of the building and who will enforce? Personally, I understand their answer. They're saying that only a business that's permitted, in that particular CO. I mean, if we're talking about the C1s and C2s, let me share this screen again.
Can't you change a CO? A CO can be changed.
Right. CO can be changed.
C1 and
There's
C2
other-
have a lot of areas.
I mean, that's a lot of businesses that you could have in there too.
Yeah.
I mean, so you're gonna allow an eating or drinking establishment up to
Mhm.
200 people in a particular, area.
Mhm.
I mean, what about the load-bearing capacity for something that has, 10,000 square feet of indoor amusement? I mean, are we talking about bowling? I was in Ridge Hill yesterday and I saw, mini golf
Right.
and, bowling. And I'm thinking to myself, what would that look like in a building in one of these areas, like on White Plains Road or on Allerton, in
Wait.
Pelham?
Well, we did have that,
Are we-
right?
Yeah, we had it all.
Are we?
So,
I mean, we had two, but on what is it, Boston Post, is it?
Yeah, Gun Hill,
Gun
yeah.
Hill Bowling Lane.
Post lane.
That's right. We had Skate Keep back in the days over here on Allerton and White Plains. I mean,
it would open up the areas to have more of that.
Okay.
Let's do it. Let's put it back, baby.
So,
How would that work? How would that work on like, well, White Plains Road does have a large, Planet Fitness, it's a large establishment. So how would that work on Morris Park Avenue? I don't know. It depends on the business.
But on the building?
Is it
I-
a Buster,
I-
kids? Is it? So,
I personally, I wouldn't. I don't look at it like that. When opening a business, there's a lot of things to keep in mind. Like I don't think anybody will open a bowling alley right under a residential building. You know what I mean? I think that there are certain zonings and areas that buildings do exist that they can be utilized for such things that they are not utilized for, right? Like we definitely do have buildings that are in existence. For example, I'll forget Morris Park. If you go up to White Plains Road and you go into I think that's a C3 zoning near what street is that? in Bronx Park East, I personally can see a bowling alley going in that area, right? I can see a future arcade going in that area. I can see such businesses going in that area, but I can't see anybody proposing or thinking of putting a bowling alley, for example, in an area that is, you know, low density, that is very low density, or even under a residential building.
I don't
It
know,
wouldn't make
Malcolm.
much
I don't know.
business sense to me.
Because there are two places that there were. First of all, you had it in Parkchester around the corner. You had around the corner from the Palace Theater, you had well, I forgot what it was called, but it was downstairs. It was lower level. And then over on Eastchester Road off of Astor, you had a bowling alley, which was down there. So you have bowling alleys, and just for example.
Feedback.
No, it's feedback.
Also, like there were places in Manhattan, like on Waverly Place, where they had the roller skating rink that was downstairs. So there are areas to utilize larger spaces. If it's zoned for it as a possibility, it could be, instead of being a parking area, they could make it bowling alley or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think it's a possibility.
I mean, like on Boston Road, many in the 80s, there was Stardust, right? Which was a lounge club, and then you had above, I don't know if a residential office space or whatever it was. But then in Harlem, you had Alhambra Ballroom, and on top of that, you had a bowling alley, which was Harlem Lanes. I mean, it's no longer there anymore, but you know, we may not be able to see it now, but wherever there's space, a business person is going to think about it. Because if it can bring money and people from outside of the community and in, people will get creative.
So there's no crystal ball.
To Malcolm's point, you know, I know you mentioned C3s, but these proposals are to bring these types of businesses into C1s and C2s. So, you know, it's just to put that out there that we're going to be voting on, you know, do we want, you know, one of these types of businesses in this area? And, you know, the consensus is, yes, we want to bring this type of business, but we also want to bring it safely. And what kind of implications is that going to have for building owners and existing businesses? Again, you know, I think infrastructure was a point that was made earlier. You know, load bearing capacity of these buildings. You know, are there going to be any subsidies or tax abatements, you know, for building owners to make these types of improvements to be able to attract these types of businesses into our areas?
And are we tearing buildings down to create areas so that, you know, I don't want to say eminent domain, but you know, again, developers get creative.
Well, especially with the loft style
Exactly.
living that's going on.
Because just like what Malcolm was talking about, White Plains Road, there is an area in White Plains Road that is kind of desolate, right? That one potential developer can look at it and say, well, I can develop here, right? I can make
I've
this.
done it in a different
I
place.
can done it. Yeah, I can do it here. There's no life here. I can bring life here.
Okay. So, all right. So, again, in regards to the restrictions on businesses, you know, whether they're load bearing capacity or not, and who's going to enforce it. Does anybody have any questions, any follow-up questions in regards to that?
How will they, it's the same question. I think that it's going to be an umbrella question. What happens? What kind of leeway do the communities have if something comes in that's in question? Is, can we weigh in? Can we weigh in on it? Or is it a sort of a done deal? Like you signed it, etc. Do we have amendments that we could work on? Can we, you know, how does the community have input? What could they give us? What questions can they give us with their knowledge to say, well, this is, you know, if this example happens, this will happen, and that, you know, and I think we need to hear a little bit more of specifics.
All right.
Not to be a stickler, but I need to ask,
When
when do we need to vote on this?
Before February 4th. So our meeting is tomorrow. So we
Alright,
have to
so-
vote tomorrow.
So we have to
Yeah.
vote tomorrow as a board.
Yeah.
We need to, I don't know if we're gonna vote on everything. I don't know if we're voting everything together, or we won't have
I mean,
time. We don't
What
have
city
time to go through proposals.
what city
So I
planning did say is that if we could send in our vote but we are able to come back and amend it with suggestions later on.
Okay.
Just as long as we get.
Where was that at? Where was that? Who
There was
said
a
that?
conversation I had with Tune before, but I could send it. I could send it to you guys. I also have that. I also have it on record with the BP's office through an email, so I can send that also.
Okay, because we're running out of time, and we have to vote, we have to be in the meeting tomorrow for the general board meeting, and we have to place this up to a vote, so. So, and then the vote has to come out of this committee.
My suggestion is,
Yeah.
we have a lot of overlapping proposals.
Uh-huh.
So basically, for example, C1 and C2 proposals mirror each other with the addition of proposal number 2. What matters most for us right now, right? Are we gonna address C1 and C2s and these R districts?
Look at the R district, that covers that. I went through each,
95% at least.
right, I went through each one of these and I gave my own little tally. For me, reading stuff of the ones that I said no about, I circled the ones I said yes. So that might be something for each one. Everybody can review. The R district is something that really needs to look at, because when I looked at, for me, for example, the only one that I could possibly see being a yes with is the new zoning to permit local retail services and maker space at NYCHA and other residential campuses. So like, I'm just giving an example of
Yeah.
what I did when I went through each one of them, so it might be something that we can look at. I don't know if we're gonna be able to explain it
So
one to everybody.
Can I
I
give a
don't know if we're
suggestion?
gonna get to vote on everything.
Can I give a suggestion?
But tomorrow, I'm just giving you the timeline.
Yeah.
That's all.
Personally,
Yeah.
I would vote no across the board for the whole thing,
That's
but
what
more of a constructive no, right? We could come back and we can give them what we want to see out of these proposals that works for our specific district. I know I did ask Toon before, like, I kind of was curious as to see what other community boards were saying.
Well,
In regards to these
it's on the internet. A bunch of them, I think 2
Mhm.
of them in the Bronx said no, 2 others said yes,
Right.
like 24-4. Like, I think they did up and down votes.
Yeah.
I'm not saying we do that. I do like this point, because I like the conversation we're having of, we have more questions and we need more time.
That's where I'm at.
And I hear you,
I'm
so
so uncomfortable.
I'm very comfortable saying
Yeah.
no, and that we need more time, so unless you want us to knock down this whole proposal, you gotta give us more time.
And that's what, I think it was Brooklyn, I think it was, the Brooklyn Community Board 11,
Yeah.
basically.
So,
Brooklyn Board
Had so many
11.
questions.
And I think that's the problem, is been leaving the table with questions.
Yeah.
Like, I'm still
no,
uncomfortable with knowing that we have to wrap it up now, and I
Yeah.
still have questions, and I still can't wrap my head, I'm not talking about anybody else here, my head around things, like the NYCHA piece. I have concerns, like the residential areas, new corner stores. What does that mean?
Yep.
It's a safety. What is that? No other agency is coming back and necessarily assuring us safety guidelines, DOB guidelines, firearm guidelines, ULIP guidelines. There's nothing.
And also, were you gonna say something? In regards to these R district, these updated rules for home occupations, it's a lot of pages of rules in this annotated zoning text. And I feel like I don't feel comfortable enough for us to vote on that. Especially if we're trying to provide the community with accurate information. I don't think that there is enough time, for us to educate the community on this and get feedback from the community. I mean, Bob, how do you feel about that?
Well, you're gonna have to go into the residential, the house, City of Yes housing part right away. So that's coming up.
Well, even that's a whole nother
Right,
piece,
that's another,
right?
that's another
So
thing that we gotta
That's
take.
coming up.
Yep. And.
Oh, yes, the housing is
The
coming up.
housing piece,
We
and that's
have time.
Yes.
Yeah, we have a lot of time
Time
for
for
that.
housing though, we gotta get ahead of it.
time, but we don't have time, right? Because it's a huge conversation because of the lack of housing we're facing now.
And you have the
That's
Metro
those
North
guys.
coming up.
You know, we might be able to answer this with an overall
Yeah.
no, but there are some that are maybes.
For
That
sure.
are-
Constructive, no, like
Yeah.
Malcolm said, right?
Exactly.
What we want from it as a
There are a
community.
few that are possibilities if given
More information.
More information.
more details.
Right.
Okay,
Not to put you under the fire, but we need more info.
Yeah.
I mean, he's done a great job, but these meetings have to be every 2 weeks.
Right.
Yeah, they
Looks of it.
do. They
By the
really
looks of
do.
it.
by the looks of it.
In order
So-
for us to really leave the table and know exactly what we're facing,
Yeah.
we need to have it bi-weekly.
I'm gonna just go through Ken's last question here.
Oh, that's right, the third question.
I think I skipped one. It was, are there any limitations on businesses in buildings without a loading dock?
That's it.
Only businesses that are permitted, only businesses that are permitted use under the applicable zoning for that property would be allowed to occupy a building. Current zoning does not require all permitted uses to provide loading. Also, current zoning only requires loading docks for uses of certain size. For example, in C1 and C2 districts, common commercial uses such as retail or service uses only need to provide loading if they are over 8,000 square feet in size. Most commercial properties in Bronx Community District 11 are smaller than that. Today, if you have a commercial building and you change its use, zoning regulations might require you to construct additional truck loading bays in that building, irrespective of if the building or owner or tenants wants or needs the truck loading bays. We want to change that so that the building owners and tenants can decide how many loading bays they need. It is their building, they know best. The current proposal is to remove requirements for all users in existing buildings to provide additional berths based on a change in use. We want to enable adaptive reuse of existing buildings by not requiring additional loading for change of use in an existing building. New buildings would still have to add a number of loading docks appropriate to the proposed mix of uses in the building. Edgar, I know that you had brought up, an important point last time. This, again, it's going to remove that requirement and it's going to allow existing buildings or tenants to decide, well, whether or not they're going to use that loading dock and how they're going to use it. It could be actual usable space that they could use for something else, whether it's, a micro distribution center or a restaurant or, something that would use that loading bay for something totally different. Anybody want to elaborate?
Which proposal was that with the loading dock?
It's up there.
It's
Was that two?
4,
for,
modernized
Yeah.
loading dock rules.
Yeah, I gave
Some
that
scenario
a
would be-
possible yes.
One thing I would say about that, because I did some research on other states, like in DC, about the loading docks and how they've changed them in certain places. And like I looked at Pelham Parkway, for example, and sometimes we have the trucks just idling on the side, taking up lots of space. And in some cities, what they've done was they've have timed loading zones now. So what happens now is, and I saw that New York City did a pilot study on it. Before a trucker comes in to load, they will have to reserve that space beforehand, and it allots them a certain amount of time in which they will have to unload, move everything into wherever it is they're moving it into, and then leave that space. On top of that, they found out through that study that it actually did speed up the amount of time in which the trucker, I guess, will do their transaction. It eased up congestion a little bit in that area, and also the money that they were charging the companies for utilizing that space also went back into the immediate community. So personally, I felt like that may be a good idea in a sense of places where it is very dense and high traffic, to help move traffic along and also free up some of that parking space that's usually blocked up with trucks just parking everywhere.
Yeah, this one seemed to have logic to it. And it seemed to zone in on just something more specific. So to me, it makes sense to say that this seems like a reasonable change. You know, because it was more detailed.
I'm just drawing a blank. What areas would we be talking about?
I'll tell you.
Other twos.
That's always the question.
No, C1,
Yeah.
C1 and C2s. So we're
Yes,
talking
those-
everything over here.
C1 and
By
the
the
C.
water.
Well, if you have the.
No, there we go. No, Williamsbridge Road area,
Wait, does it
White
say,
Plains Road.
does it say proposal 4 on it?
C2 is
Sorry,
less.
C2. Hold on.
Yeah.
Wait, where did it go?
Or does
Hold on.
C4?
It was proposal 4. So it's in C4 districts, so it's actually not that many.
Yeah,
Okay.
C4 is very minimal,
Yeah.
so,
Blue right there.
Yeah, it would be nice to have
Yeah,
the
you go to Boston Road.
from,
whereas
That's with.
they had, this is over by Con Ed.
That's,
so they're removing the requirements in areas that basically aren't, I mean, very residential, right?
Yeah.
This is by the train tracks over here. Maybe they just like propose to
Like, this is
expand
a-
their scope.
This is a train yard. I think
Right.
it's the train yard up there. This is also by,
It's over here.
that is the 2 train, that's Panda Express, I think. That's also Starbucks.
Yeah. That's
Right?
Palm Park area. Yeah.
Fitness.
Yeah, Blood Elm Way. The parking lot is over
Glasses
there.
store. Yeah.
All right, so then this is one of those given yes type things almost, you know, I mean, they're removing the requirements. I mean, I wish that they would expand the scope of it to remove the requirement in other areas. But you know, this is what they're giving us.
So 6 minutes left. What are we gonna do?
Gallery session, do we have anybody from the public?
okay, go once, go twice.
Diana Finch? Hello, Miss Finch?
Yes, hi. So I think everyone has lots of really good questions, and I would observe that a lot of these questions do have answers that are kind of buried in the voluminous explanation that city planning has mostly on their website, but it's kind of all over the place. It's hard to find. You have to click on different things to see if you can find what you're looking for. But I think that a lot of your questions are answered. And that these zoning rules don't change things like Department of Building requirements. So, yeah, I
But
agree
Diana-
that we need more time to find,
I
to
think,
absorb all this information.
I think the ultimate issue is finding comfort in the proposals themselves. We're-
Right, and
we're-
a lot of the questions that you're bringing up and the objections that you have, they are addressed in the detailed descriptions
Correct,
of the
but
city
the way
planning
that they address
proposals.
it,
But they're hard to find, and
Yeah.
it takes time to look
So
for
what-
them and
the
find
last
them
thing
and
we
read
would want to
them and-
do is vote as a board based off incomplete information that folks haven't caught up on. We could be very
Right,
versed in
right.
it, but we don't have hours upon hours to explain every detail for the folks on our board. So if we go up there and say, hey, we feel this passionately about all these 20 proposals, they go, I don't believe you, because they haven't read it. But so it's one of those kind of problems that we have. Maybe if we bring back the folks, the city planning folks, explain them a couple more times, or have a webinar where folks can get on again with these detailed questions and answers, we'll find more comfort.
And I think this is why the public
Right.
doesn't really trust city planning, right? Or
Oh, yeah, because they
government,
buried it.
right? Because you're burying it, right? And you shouldn't bury it. You should want us to be able to go on your website and say, aha, okay, here's an answer to my question. I should not have to spend 2 hours decoding something that is open to the public. And that's the issue.
More like 2 days.
Yeah.
So I think
It's a lot.
what we're gonna do, who's RD?
Roxanne.
Mr. Gallo.
Roxanne, do you have a question?
No, I have a short statement. Is that possible?
Go for it.
Go for it, because we're gonna motion to vote soon.
Okay, thank you. First, I do have a concern with the nitrogen 15,000 square feet. to commercialize residential public housing. As many may know, they're already privatizing the management in many of public housing. They did it with Boston Road and thankfully not with Palm Parkway due to cost of repairs. But nonetheless, if they commercialize public residential area, it has to benefit the housing residents, because I do live across from Palm Parkway houses. And if it's commercialized, it has to either employ NYCHA residents. It has to all revenue has to go directly to the complex. It cannot just take away more public land, more public use from public residents, housing residents, especially when they have no community center Palm Parkway houses, because due to funding, due to revenue seeking, NYCHA has leased the community space to nonprofit entities. Despite the fact that they do good work, it deprives the NYCHA residents from empowering themselves and organizing themselves in a community setting. So, and second remark is the gaming facility proposed text amendment. That initially was part of the City of Yes point. That was one of the points when they initially introduced City of Yes. But now they separated, but nonetheless, the deadline is Feb 5th. And I know there was a email that was sent by the Bronx City Planning, where he said it doesn't affect Community Board 11 or any community that doesn't have proposed casino site, proposed project casino. I disagree, and I have contact other city planning outside the Bronx, and I'm following up on it. But it does affect us because it's going to give these sites a right, and basically circumvent the EULA process, which basically minimizes community input, and that affects all of us, whether we agree or not on casinos. So I'm hoping, again, I'm requesting for you guys to have a public hearing on the gambling facility proposed text amendment, because it does affect us. I don't know why he would say something like that, but I'm trying to get email to dispute that. Anyhow, have a good night.
Thank you, Roxanne.
So are you prepared to put a motion on the table?
Yeah, I'm just thinking
Okay.
about the words. Give me 30 seconds. All right, motion to vote that we vote no on the City of Yes proposal and request more time from the city planning office.
We have to specify which proposal. We're
All of
voting
them.
on the City of
All-
Yes, no.
Yeah.
The vote is for the City of Yes economic opportunity.
Right, yep.
And do we have to specify?
Yeah,
It's for the City of Yes?
yes,
For
that
economic
portion, right,
opportunity.
right.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, yeah,
I was-
I think so, yeah, of course.
There's several different parts to it. Do you want to restate?
Yeah, so motion to vote that we vote no on the City of Yes economic development.
Economic opportunity.
Economic.
Everybody, I know everybody,
Hold on.
Yeah,
Motion to vote.
yeah.
Because we have additional questions. Somehow we should put that we have additional questions or concerns.
Okay,
Because of.
Right, right, because of, we don't, certain issues, provided that we are provided answers to our questions, like some, I
need
just
more-
don't want to say no.
but you have more details,
Right.
specific.
yeah, but we need more time is what.
Right,
my-
right.
was my ask.
How do we say that in a nice way?
Well, I mean, we know.
Just say it.
You can make it a conditional no. A conditional no in regards to just say we'll conditionally vote no, as we believe we need more time, and we'll provide later explanation as to what we'd like to see from.
The only reason
Wrong.
why I don't like the
You're right.
time
Oh.
is because it makes it seem like we didn't do our job, right? I like them to know that we have additional questions and concerns.
Yeah, we read into it more, we have more questions.
Right. So what you said, Malcolm, but adding the piece to what Rich just said.
Yeah.
So I got some word in here that I want to propose to you guys, and I don't want to make it a conditional no. I want them to know that we're serious about this, and we don't like it the way it is. And again, I'm saying based on community sentiment. A
Yep.
lot of people don't like, I mean, we may like a lot of the stuff that we're reading here, but a lot of the community doesn't. So I'm proposing the following wording. A motion to vote no on the City of Yes for economic opportunity due to additional questions and more time to understand the implications of this initiative.
Beautiful,
Yeah, that's it.
lovely.
Perfect.
What do you guys think?
I second that.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm going to abstain from this one.
Just gonna say any
Oh,
abstentions?
Any abstention?
Any no's?
I abstain.
Any no's?
No.
Any no's?
Any no's?
Cool.
Okay, motion
Any old,
passes.
only, any old business?
No.
No? Any new business?
Yes.
New business.
So, we do have, Mr. Press here, which is now a new community member.
Yep.
I don't know exactly how this happened, but, I do welcome Mr. Press onto here. Given his history with board members, I just want to make sure that, we understand your intentions going forward as a member of this board. Hold on, you're getting ready. And again, just like we have Mr. Press here as a community member, if we have any other members of the community or any other members of trade associations or civic groups in the community that wish to be community members of the City of Yes Committee, please email our board, Jeremy, our district manager, and then he'll put you in contact with the people that can make this happen, just like they made it happen for Mr. Press. And Mr. Press, I'll give the floor to you if you want to say some words.
Or just say that the request should always be in writing to Jeremy and the staff.
The request should be in writing
Yeah.
to Jeremy and the staff.
You have 1 week before city planning starts their info sessions on the City US housing opportunity. They start Tuesday, January 30th.
Right,
Oh, I thought I saw that email.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
yes.
We should actually we should plan the vision board event for that. Actually, I think there's enough time for us to actually work that out.
Okay.
So if you guys want, I know Serena and I had already pushed things forward with the city planning and we held it. So if you guys want to reactivate that plan and transition the housing initiative in regard with the vision board event, we could do that for sure. I
We
think
can
it
circle
might
back on that.
be.
Definitely.
Yeah.
That sounds great. We're gonna take that one last question from Roxanne, and we're gonna make a motion to end this.
All
Roxanne?
right, I appreciate it. I'll make it short. The BP already submitted her recommendation for the City of Yes for economic opportunities, and it was released on January 9th, and the hearing was held last year. And this is an ongoing issue where we're missing public hearing because we're not notified. So I'm not sure if the BP has notified the community board, if they did notify, but going forward, can we please notify the community when there's the next open hearing, open meeting on this process? Because I know it goes to BP's office, which she already held her meeting and submitted her recommendation for City of Yes economic opportunity. But there's also going to be hearing in the city planning as well as city council. So, I mean, I look it up at the portal, but it'd be helpful if that either the community or the staff was notify the community of upcoming meetings on this. Thank you so much.
Noted.
I believe we did actually. We have the social media committee has been posting the meetings on the Facebook page. Maybe we will have to make it more alert, I guess, but I know we've been posting those meetings on the Facebook page whenever we got them.
Oh, not for the BPs. You could check online. It was city planning meetings, but never for the BP's meeting for the YOA process of this application. You could check yourself out. It was never
I'll double check.
submitted. Thank
Okay.
We can check that. Thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, motion to adjourn. That's it.
Yep.
Meeting ends at
7:06.
7:06.
Give me a couple dates for these minutes.
Thank you, everybody.
Edward, I need to text you for that motion.